In the shadowy world of espionage, one name stands out for the audacity and devastation of betrayal. Aldrich Ames, a former CIA officer turned KGB mole. Ames embarked on a 9-year path of betrayal that led to the arrests and deaths of more than 10 of the US's highest-ranking and most important spies. This is the gripping tale of how greed, personal struggles, and a web of deception led to the most disastrous intelligence failure in American history. Aldrich Ames, hailing from River Falls, Wisconsin, came into this world on May 26, 1941. Little did he know that the world of espionage would become a significant chapter in his life. The roots of intrigue were embedded deep within his family, especially with his father, Carlton Cecil, being a CIA operative. This familial connection played a pivotal role in shaping Ames's destiny. His journey into the covert realm commenced in 1957 during his high school days. It was in these formative years that Ames first dipped his toes into the waters of espionage. As a young recruit, he mustered the courage to explore the intricate world of intelligence. The allure of secret missions and classified information beckoned him, laying the groundwork for a career that both defined and disrupted the course of US intelligence. The transition from a curious high schooler to a full-fledged CIA officer unfolded in 1962, when Ames secured a full-time position within the agency. However, the path he had chosen was not without its challenges. A clash arose between his inner passion for drama and the arts and the demanding nature of the intelligence world. This internal conflict hinted at the complexities that later unfolded in Ames's life. In those early years, Ames grappled with the dual identity of an aspiring artist and a burgeoning intelligence officer. The duality of his interests reflected a struggle to reconcile personal passions with the responsibilities that came with being a CIA operative. Little did anyone suspect that this internal conflict would eventually lead him down a path of betrayal and espionage. In 1969, Ames took a big step by getting married to Nancy Sedgebath, who worked with him at the CIA. They were given a mission in Ankara, Turkey, where their job was to convince Soviet intelligence officers to work for the CIA. However, this assignment turned out to be tougher than they thought. It not only tested their marriage, but also made Ames think about leaving the CIA. The job that once seemed exciting now felt like a tricky puzzle. By 1972, Ames had assumed leadership of all Soviet and Eastern European operations conducted in Europe. In this new role, his performance assessments were notably positive. He demonstrated proficiency in managing paperwork and field operations. However, a recurring issue emerged as his excessive drinking became problematic, resulting in the inclusion of 2 confidential memos in his personal file in 1976. By 1976, Ames found himself assigned to New York City, where he managed 2 significant Soviet assets in this stage in his career. His expertise in the intricacies of the KGB had grown, earning him favorable performance appraisals, numerous promotions, and bonuses while working in New York. Nonetheless, his casual approach to financial accounting and involvement in a couple of serious security violations tarnished his record. This included an incident where he left a briefcase containing classified operational materials on a subway while en route to meet a Soviet asset. Although the briefcase was later recovered, the extent of compromise to the classified information it contained remained unknown. In 1981, Ames and Nancy decided to move to Mexico City, hoping for a fresh start. But what was supposed to be a new beginning turned into a period of mediocrity, both personally and at work. The rising star within the CIA now faced a stall in his career. The person who once showed great potential now felt like he wasn't meeting expectations. Ames's time in Mexico City were not as good as he hoped. The person who was doing well in the CIA was now stuck. The thought of going back to a job as an administrative assistant felt like a step backward. Ames faced more than just work challenges during this time. The difficulties in his marriage to Nancy, combined with the problems in his career, added a personal layer to his struggles. The hopeful start of their marriage now faced challenges like distance, pressure, and unmet expectations. This period marked a tough chapter for Ames, where both his personal and professional life seemed to be at a crossroads. Ames's life took a darker turn in 1982 when he secretly started a relationship with Maria del Rosario Casas Dupuy, who did some work for the CIA. This hidden affair, along with money problems and growing resentment towards the CIA, led Ames to contemplate drastic actions. In 1983, Ames was transferred again to Washington, where he was placed in the most sensitive part of the operations department responsible for all Soviet counterintelligence. He had access to all CIA plans and operations against the KGB and Soviet military intelligence. Many have wondered why Ames was given such a high-profile position, and the answer seems to lie in the fact that the role he was given was unpopular among operational officers. It was during this time that Rosario left Colombia to join Ames in Washington as his mistress. Rosario had wild spending habits. She spent Ames's money in luxury restaurants and fashion boutiques. After Ames' divorce from Nancy in 1983, he remained under financial pressure. Ames agreed to pay off the accumulated marital debts and provide monthly support to Nancy. That's how financial pressure led him to consider espionage for the Soviet Union. In April 1985, Ames made a daring move. He chose to disclose classified information that he had access to. It wasn't just about sharing secrets. It was a way to get a substantial amount of money in return. This marked the official beginning of Ames's journey as a spy for the Soviet Union. Little did he know that this step would have severe consequences, not just for him, but for the entire US intelligence community. Ames's betrayal struck at the heart of the CIA's operations. His position as the head of the CIA's Soviet East European Division gave him access to a wealth of information about US intelligence operations and assets. The secrets he handed over to the Soviets led to the compromise of numerous CIA agents and assets, resulting in their capture and, in some cases, execution. The impact of Ames's betrayal was catastrophic, causing irreparable damage to US intelligence efforts. The unraveling of operations, loss of assets, and compromised missions sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. The toll on human lives was devastating, as those who had placed their trust in the CIA paid the ultimate price for Ames's betrayal. The scale of the damage became apparent as more and more CIA assets were exposed and eliminated. The Soviet Union, and later Russia, capitalized on the information provided by Ames, dismantling US intelligence networks and significantly setting back American espionage efforts. The damage wasn't limited to the professional realm. It extended to the personal lives of those affected by Ames's actions. The loss of colleagues and the sense of betrayal reverberated through the intelligence community, leaving scars that would endure for years to come. In 1985, a significant clue came from Colonel Vitaly Yushchenko, suggesting that the threat might be internal within the CIA itself. This should have prompted the CIA to turn its attention inward, but it wasn't as straightforward as it sounds. The CIA grappled with what can be called Angleton syndrome, named after someone who found it hard to believe that traitors could exist within the organization. This reluctance and delay in acknowledging the possibility of an inside job made it a prolonged challenge for the CIA to uncover the mole in their midst. At the end of 1985, he made a trip to Bogota. There he took the opportunity to meet a KGB officer named Vladimir Machuliev, who became his main handler for most of his espionage career. In August 1985, shortly after his divorce was finalized, Ames married Rosario. People started noting that Ames suddenly had a lot of money. To explain his wealth, Ames made up a story that his wife's family was wealthy. As Ames continued his journey in the CIA, he found himself in Rome in 1986. This was like a new chapter in his life as a spy, but it came with its own set of challenges. The total amount Ames had received from the Soviet Union during his espionage career was a whopping $2.5 million. He decided to use a Swiss bank account to handle his funds. It's like having a secret hiding place for your money, but in this case, it was not for saving. It was for hiding the money he was receiving for betraying his own country. While in Rome, Ames didn't take a break from his double life. He continued to share classified information with the Soviet Union. It's like being in a movie where the main character has a secret identity and no one around knows about it. The information he shared put at risk not only intelligence operations, but also the lives of agents working for the US. On May 2, 1986, Ames faced one of his greatest fears, a polygraph test. all CIA employees were required to take a polygraph test every 5 years. It had been 10 years since Ames had one due to a massive backlog. He was terrified when he heard about the test. Ames took his polygraph test, and the results showed misleading answers to some questions, including when he was asked whether he had been contacted by other foreign intelligence services. The incompetent polygraph examiner incorrectly concluded that Ames had passed the test. In 1986, it became clear to the CIA that there was a very real possibility of a mole within its ranks. A team known as the Special Task Force was assembled to track down the mole, leaking information to the Soviets. The team, led by Paul Redmond and consisting of Jean Vertefeuille, Sandra Grimes, Diane Worthen, and Dan Payne, started investigating everything. In 1989, Ames was appointed head of the European Union branch of the External Operations Group of the Soviet and Eastern European Division, based in Washington, D.C. This position gave him access to even more unique secret information that his KGB handlers would be most interested in. As the pages of Ames's life story turned, those in his professional circle began to notice shifts. At work, it became evident that Ames was enjoying a lifestyle that seemed out of sync with his position. Despite his annual salary of $60,000, Ames led a life of luxury. He owned a $500,000 home in an upscale suburb in Arlington, Virginia. He drove a luxury car, a Jaguar, and spent tens of thousands of dollars remodeling and redecorating his home. Additionally, he had monthly phone bills totaling more than $6,000, mainly due to phone calls from his wife to her family in Colombia. He also had premium credit cards with minimum monthly payments that were higher than his monthly salary. Colleagues couldn't help but raise their eyebrows at this unexpected turn of events. The possibility that Ames could be a mole grew, so he was kept under surveillance for the rest of his CIA career. Ames' access to top-secret information that would have been of interest to the Soviets was more limited in this role, and therefore it was thought that he would be able to do less damage if he later turned out to be a spy. As the spotlight began to shine on Ames, the research team began talking to several of his colleagues and friends. What they learned was quite shocking. Some said they would not have been surprised if Ames was a spy, citing the many phone calls he received from Soviet diplomats and his flaunting of inexplicable wealth. On April 12, 1991, Ames faced a polygraph test again, but this time he failed miserably. He was questioned about the source of his wealth. The polygraph examiner had not been informed of the Ames investigation and thought it was a routine inquiry. The polygraph examiner told Ames to come back again. A week later, Ames returned and passed with flying colors, as no questions were asked about the source of his wealth. This positive result convinced the Special Task Force that Ames was not the mole. In the spring of 1993, the CIA Special Task Force and the FBI began working together and exchanging information, all in an effort to find the mole. The relentless pursuit of the mole led investigators again to Ames, who had managed to evade suspicion for nearly a decade. The CIA and FBI began to keep Ames under almost constant physical surveillance. They searched his trash and installed a monitor in his car to track his movements. These efforts, combined with the financial irregularities, became key factors in the investigation. On February 21, 1994, Aldrich Ames and his wife Rosario were arrested by the FBI at their home in Arlington. The evidence against Ames was damning, with a trail of financial transactions and intelligence leaks leading directly to him. The scale of his betrayal shocked the nation, and the subsequent trial shed light on the extent of the damage he had inflicted on U.S. national security. On April 28, 1994, Ames pleaded guilty to espionage charges in exchange for a life sentence without the possibility of parole. His plea bargain spared him from facing the death penalty, and he agreed to cooperate with authorities by providing details about his espionage activities. The court's decision reflected the magnitude of the damage inflicted on American intelligence, estimated to be at least 100 compromised operations and the unfortunate execution of 10 sources who had trusted in the integrity of their missions. Ames's wife, Rosario, received a 5-year prison sentence for tax evasion and conspiracy to commit espionage.
Burning questions in Washington: how could it have taken so long? So long to arrest the highest-ranking CIA officer ever accused of selling out to the Russians?
In the aftermath of Ames's arrest, the intelligence community was left to grapple with the fallout of his actions. The breach of trust ran deep, and the ripple effects extended far beyond the exposed operations. Questions arose about the effectiveness of internal security measures and the ability of the intelligence apparatus to safeguard its most sensitive information. The repercussions reverberated not only through the intelligence community, but also through the corridors of government. The compromise of such a significant number of operations raised concerns at the highest level of decision-making. How could one man operating within the system cause such extensive damage? It was a question that demanded answers and prompted a thorough investigation of the institutional vulnerabilities that allowed this betrayal to persist for nearly a decade. The revelation of Aldrich Ames's betrayal sent shockwaves through the CIA and beyond, sparking significant repercussions and casting a long shadow over the intelligence landscape. The aftermath of this espionage spree was not just about assigning blame. It was about understanding the consequences and addressing the systemic vulnerabilities that allowed such a breach. The CIA, once the guardian of national secrets, found itself under intense scrutiny. Critics and observers pointed fingers at the agency's handling of the Ames case, leading to widespread criticism. In response, a thorough investigation was launched to dissect the flaws and shortcomings that permitted Ames to operate freely within the system for almost a decade. The scrutiny extended beyond mere finger-pointing. It became a moment of reckoning for the entire intelligence community. Questions loomed large about the ability of one of the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world to protect its own secrets. The fallout demanded a re-evaluation of internal security protocols, personnel screening processes, and the overall resilience of the intelligence apparatus. Aldrich Ames's espionage case serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities within intelligence agencies and the devastating consequences of internal betrayal. As the legacy of this notorious CIA mole endures, the narrative of Ames raises critical questions about the effectiveness of intelligence agencies in safeguarding national security from within. The timelines of events given by Ames did not always match the actual occurrences. Some even believe that there may be another unknown mole within the ranks of the CIA, perhaps even to this day, the lurking presence within American intelligence, betraying secrets and causing havoc, leaves us contemplating whether another figure resembling Aldrich Ames will emerge. Only time will tell if the shadows conceal another chapter of internal betrayal within the intelligence community.